And this is Ian Ward. We wanted to just welcome you here to talk about CKAN today. It's an open source tool that we've been using and working on for quite some time, and we didn't realize there was so many others of you that have also been working on it. Ian and I were talking about this a while ago, and we thought there was going to be 10 of us in the room, and there's over 100 people that have actually wanted to participate in today and registered for the conference. So we're pretty excited about that. Just a few quick housekeeping tips. Sorry, we'll deal with the display after. A few quick housekeeping tips is that there's going to be a coffee break at about 10:30. We're sharing it with a bunch of the other people that are participating in IODC pre-conference events. So we didn't exactly time it with our presentations, given that we want to go through so many different extensions today. So if you guys want to slip out at 10:30 or between 10:30 and 11:30, by all means, you're welcome to do so. Other than that, I guess I should have mentioned at the beginning that for those of you that don't know me, I'm Ashlock from the Government of Canada. I run Open.Canada.ca, and we use CKAN as our platform. Unfortunately, with all of the other events going on today, I am the sole representative from the Government of Canada, along with my team, sorry. But I just wanted to welcome you here on behalf of us. And we do want to get started with all of our presentations. We have a fairly packed agenda today. So without further ado, I'll allow Ian to introduce our speakers for the morning session. We'll have a quick break, and then we'll go into the extension presentations.
Yes, I can see myself here. Thank you, Ashley. Yes, as Ashley said, my name is Ian Ward. I work with Ashley on Open.Canada.ca. And datacats.com, and it's my pleasure to introduce our first speakers, David Reed from data.gov.uk and Stephen Costa, steering member of the CKAN steering group.
That's me. All right, help me out, Ashley. Where's my stuff?
Right here. So we'll just... let's go. Sorry, we're also webcasting live if you guys were not aware, so we just want to make sure that they get it as well. We'll figure that out. Sorry, 1 second. Of course this all works in the morning when you're testing it. There we go.
Sure.
Yeah.
There you are. Okay.
All right.
There you are.
CKAN Foo. Okay, so I'm in the steering group, and basically what I want to talk about today is the CKAN Association, but I want to lead up to talking about that and sort of just talk a little bit about community and what CKAN is as an open source project. So this is me. I thought I'd introduce myself as a community member. Obviously I will work for data, and I've been kind of taking that sign around a few places in the last few months. I've got it with me today, and it is a prerequisite before people leave. They have to take a photo with the sign on their own account and tweet it out with the hashtag #WeAreCKAN. It's a prerequisite. It's very important. This is actually kind of who I am in terms of how I try and pay wages and have a salary and all that kind of stuff. So I have a company called LinkDigital. We've been a digital agency for the last 14 years in Canberra, which is a government town. I do a lot of work with Amazon through that. I'm on the Open Knowledge Foundation as the secretary, Australian Open Knowledge Foundation, as a secretary and treasurer. I'm involved in a really cool GovHack event that's been running for the last 3 years in Australia. Not so much this year, but it's really cool in that it's grown from about 2 locations to 30 locations this year, from about 400 developers involved or participants to about 2,000. Obviously involved in the CKAN Association, and I have a brand that's called Data Shades, similar sort of stuff as DataCats. So this is also what I work for. This is basically my family, and this is more what I work for. It's not just data, it's not just those roles and titles. And I think that's the kind of key for anyone who's involved in a community. You have these reasons to work on this stuff, you just get pulled into it. Talking about CKAN specifically, it's a project. So like any open source project, you can go to the ckan.org website, you can follow the links to the Git repos, you can pull things down, you can work on it, you can fork it. And that's been working successfully. There's been really good adoption within the enterprise market, if that's how we want to classify it, within government jurisdictions of CKAN as a data catalog. And with that adoption, the reason why the CKAN Association has been formed is to try and put a little bit of governance across that to protect the community as much as possible. So a little bit of work that's been occurring within the steering group, which is currently 4 people, 3 of whom are here today, Ashley and Antonio. And Sandra as well, I think, is stepping in to represent open knowledge within the steering group as well. We have a statement of purpose. Basically, it's to the project itself is to deliver the world's best open data management system. And the purpose of the CKAN Association is really just to support the community so that we can sustain that, so we can keep delivering the world's best open data management system. And the association would therefore value a healthy, thriving community which continues to deliver on this purpose. All other sub-purposes should basically match up into that. So what are the community interests? To try and distill that down to 2 primary user groups, or groups. Those who actually use it, those who have kind of like an enterprise level open data catalog that needs to be delivering data out to their end users. I use the word enterprise loosely there, not just to represent that, you know, the world of Oracle and you know, big IT. What we see more and more recently is that even commodity level IT services, whether they're SaaS products, need to perform at an enterprise level. So for an open source project such as CKAN, if it's going to deliver services well, it needs to deliver at an enterprise level. For me, that means high availability, extremely good performance under high load conditions in a very stable and predictable way. Within the other user group, which is basically the community, myself included, people just need a project that's rewarding to work for. So you might have a job, you might have to do some CKAN stuff for your job, but if you're going to really get involved and donate extra time and work really hard on things, it just needs to be rewarding, and that's a subjective thing. So who owns or directly manages the CKAN project? I just wanted to reiterate that. It's the community itself. However, it will help if within the steering group we can look at things, identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and then pursue specific business activities like a normal commercial organization might to help with continuing those strengths, protecting from threats, working against weaknesses, etc., and capturing opportunities. More information on the CKAN Association can certainly be found on ckan.org. It's not always so obvious to see where the links are. There'll be a redevelopment of the site in the future, I'm sure. But down in the footer, you just go through to About, and you'll find links through to the CKAN Association and various things. Now, how far along are we with the completeness of this purpose? We have a structure for the association. There's a steering group physically sitting up on top. It doesn't mean that it's hierarchically on top in any manner. There's an advisory group. That's a function which comes through from those who are funding members who can advise into the project and have a seat at the table to talk about issues within the steering group, for example. We have a technical group, which really is the core of what the CKAN project is. People who are actually working directly on code, who are managing the pull requests and the Git repos for core, and working towards releases of, say, 2.3 to 2.4 or 2.5 to 3, etc. Within the community as well, we obviously have things like Trello boards to manage feature requests and requirements and try to create more of a roadmap. So the technical group are deeply involved in that. Community and communications group is quite immature at the moment. It's basically myself and a couple of other people collaborating over a Basecamp. I'd like to do a lot more, but it might need some dedicated resources into the future. But at the moment, because we have such great adoption of the project, really the communications is almost through word of mouth and referrals. We don't have to do a lot to be highly effective in communicating the values of the project. The other really good thing about it is open source is so closely aligned with open data. The principles behind open source are openness, participation, and collaboration. The principles of open government are transparency, participation, and collaboration. Very, very subtle difference. So it's quite an easy thing to communicate into the existing open source community that you might want to work for the project and help us out. So the idea is that the steering group will carry on a number of business activities. Ideally, we'll be very transparent in what they are, but the usual suspects will be trying to bring in funding partners, members at different tiers. The tiers that we have currently are gold members. If they're going to contribute in cash, it'd be something like $50,000 US, I believe it is. It's quite expensive, but we're in a sort of like an enterprisey world when it comes to the CKAN project, so we shouldn't be shooting too low. There are always full-time equivalent in-kind contributions that can be made. So within a government entity, it's quite easy for a government entity to put full-time equivalents into a project and get into things like the advisory group, or depending on your ambition within the project, to get into the steering group as well. Silver, bronze, and supporter. There's also an individual member. Basically, anyone can be a member just by virtue of being involved in the project. These are just the idea of having sort of formal funded memberships which bequeath them with some benefits, such as having a little badge on your email, things like that. Now, I did go into a little bit of work to try and identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I don't want to go into this too much because it is a limited time and I need to pay attention to that. But the key point here is that we have lots of strengths when it comes to this project. There are so many things that are going well for it. Very few weaknesses. A couple of them are quite key. We need to do a few things to protect the project or to strengthen it. One thing would be that there is a reliance on open knowledge services at the moment that we need to sort of move around and shuffle so that there's more community-based contributions into the project, more people writing on code, and getting commits done and getting the releases happening without open knowledge services having to basically foot the bill for that. And there's also a little bit of technical debt that we need to get on top of with regards to a Python framework. So a couple of other things I put in there where I put relatively is that we won't have relatively low activity when it comes to community contributions. The relative there is the kind of reach that CKAN has in that enterprise space, the kind of adoption it has within government. Relatively speaking, we have so few people in there. In some regards, that's a strength as well when you consider if you're going to exit college or work in academia and contribute into an open source project with some esteem, it may take you years and years, maybe decades, and tens of thousands of commits to get into the core of the team. A project like CKAN, within a relatively short period of time, you can be quite central with the development of key extensions, making really big commitments into core, and your work is being represented in hundreds of national jurisdiction, state jurisdiction, and city jurisdictional portals around the world, building the semantic web, creating a better future, all that kind of stuff. So our opportunities, again, a key point there is they're massive. There are so many things that we can do within the project. It's such a core piece of technology in the center of a very topical subject. Open government is an economic argument as much as it is an argument for transparency. Collaboration is a key thing that's occurring within the technology ICT sector at the moment. The cost to collaborate means the transaction costs are reducing within firms. The concept of government, big government, is being challenged. You can have smaller government and just be as effective as you have been in the past through modern technology and collaboration techniques. And CKAN is in the center of that. It's driving that sort of cost savings within government and into the future. We'll see that in academia. We'll see that within enterprise as well. Threats, well, it's just a short list. The main threats are, if we don't have a thriving community, we'll have churn out. We won't have enough contributors to maintain core and patch and do security checks. We won't have enough people involved to do due diligence on things like language translations. We need to protect the project by having enough people involved. And we certainly need to protect our enterprise adoptees of the platform. So that means really consider things like performance and scalability and reliability over the long term. Focus on the core of what it is. It's a platform for machines more so than it is for users. It's a platform for data custodians more than it is for users as well. The tertiary users would then be the people who go to the catalogs and find data sets and look at resources for their own coding projects. But making sure that we're focusing on the primary and secondary user groups. So that's my CKAN Association blurb. Really what I wanted to do is try and raise some awareness of the association and how the project is viewed by those within the steering group with regards to opportunities, threats, etc. The business activities and for want of a better word, a business plan around these things is currently one of the things in development, and we'll be welcoming feedback and input from everyone within this room and everyone attending virtually and anyone who might want to jump into the project at whatever stage. Now, I could talk about Link, but I don't really need to. How's the time?
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes.
No, you have 1 minute.
1 minute. Oh, that's even easier. This is what we do. We have platform as a service through DataShades. We do end-of-line digital service delivery through LinkDigital. The technology stack we use is basically Amazon for compute, network, and storage, and Drupal and CKAN for software. We have our CKAN Galvanize in beta, which is a platform as a service for CKAN. That's the architecture that we use, basically. It's a little bit future-focused because we're using the NFS service. We like Amazon because there's lots of cool stuff that's being released all the time. If you want to integrate with machine learning, you want to do interpretive analysis of images, build semantic content on top of your data objects. There's a lot of innovation going on with Amazon. This is something we're releasing today, CKAN Galleries on github.com/datashades. It's basically like a distribution for those familiar with the Drupal world, where we've got a particular market we're hitting, which is digital asset management systems, and we're extending CKAN so that it's more comprehensively able to build thumbnail views of individual records for images, use Amazon Elastic Transcoder to transcode high definition video into small previews, and do some smart things with storage so that you can move things from relatively high S3 storage into Glacier at low cost based on the volatility of use of that. We also do government stuff when it comes to open data is usually born of a whole of government data view, which is born of a private data view. So using CKAN in a federated model within different excluded networks, and also federating between different CKANs. So in Australia we've got the federal portal federated with the New South Wales state, federated with the South Australian state, and we'll be bringing in others such as Queensland, Victoria, and others. That's it.
Great. Thanks. Just a really quick apology to everybody on the webcast. We tested this, however, we didn't test it with 2 displays, so I think if you saw a black screen, that is because we are also presenting within the room. So we will share Stephen's presentation, and if that happens with anyone else's, we will, again, share it. And give me 1 second. When I was closing tabs,
Will some of the slides be put up somewhere also?
Yeah, we are sharing them within the webcast, and we'll make an event page, and then we will update ckan.org after the presentations today. You could. Yep. That. Sorry, 1 second. There you go. And then for you here, there, you've got it mirrored already. Okay, great. Just.
Thank you. If I can make this bigger. There we go. I'm getting a bit off-piste without any PowerPoint to help. So my name is David Reed. I work on data.gov UK. I've been one of the core developers of CKAN. I was working out today about 6 years ago. I started on it. Data.gov, the big American site, launched 6 years ago, a few weeks ago, and that was really kind of the big start of data portals around the world. So that's me. Data.gov UK came around in the September, so only a few minutes to go, and then we'll have our birthday cake. But I really wanted to just talk about, just use this initial session to go through what is CKAN and a little bit more, give it an overview, to talk about some of the technical things inside it, talk about where it's been going over the past year, a bit of an update, talk about some of the successes, and really just really help us into the day, because I think there's quite a lot of detail coming up today. It'd be great to have a good overview of where we are. So there's two really key things for me. I've just outlined the strengths of CKAN, the two really key things which really recommend it to people. That there's this great flexibility. There are these plugins. I think there's 26 interfaces in CKAN, which are really quite well thought out ways to change CKAN. So you can write your extension, not have to dip into the core CKAN code, just call these nice hooks to customize the little bits you want to change, from the small visual elements to the way that the form is produced, to add or remove fields, to change the way some of the fields are saved, to swapping out whole sections of the validation, or how you display different file formats in CKAN. So that flexibility for me is really, really key. I mean, it is open source, but I would say that there's plenty of open source going around which only one person knows or one company knows, and so yes, it's great it's open source, but there's a lot more to flexible open software than just having the code readable on the web. CKAN's thousands and thousands of lines, do your homework. Who knows about this code when you're trying to select some open source? And I'll mention that the templates are all in Ginger. It's really well-known template language. There's blocks, so you can just say, I want to take that bit and I'll replace it with my bit of code, or that little bit, or that big bit. There's a really nice hierarchy of templates if you just want to change the visuals of it. And then all the other things you see in normal web frameworks. I mean, it's not Django, but it's Python. It's well known, and it's well known, and you can fiddle with headers and parse things and change caching headers and things like that. And the other big plus of CKAN is the community, as Stephen's already said. And so you take CKAN into a new organization. They say, great, we want a data catalog, and then you say, well, every user who puts data on this thing has got to create a new account. And they say, well, we've already got our accounts. So we don't want everyone in the office to create a new account. We've already got our LDAP, or we've got our Microsoft Active Directory or something. And thankfully, CKAN has got out of the box this, these extensions which provide these things without having to go in and worry about that. And then someone says, well, actually, I've got another data store over here. I've got a geological, list of data sets here on this fancy GIS server, and it's all in some obscure GIS format. Can you harvest this into CKAN? And the answer is probably yes. And someone could come along and say, well, I can do a simple data catalog in WordPress or whatever CMS, and suddenly these extensions become very, very valuable. This is a great reason to choose CKAN, because all these kind of the next level on of what you want to do with a catalog is they're all solved in CKAN. And if you do a custom solution, then you don't get very far. And I'll just mention that the French national portal last year decided that having been in CKAN for a couple of years, and they've tried some custom solutions, they thought CKAN and they took it in a different direction for them, and they've got a great site, and they decided they've got some great features for letting the community contribute data sets. Anyone could put a data set on the French national site, which is a very interesting feature. Or, it'd be great to have that in CKAN, if someone does that. But they've lost the community on that, so they're going to find it very tough. I'll just briefly mention the architecture. CKAN, most programmers, web developers, we're familiar with the model view controller architecture, keeping those elements relatively separate, so you can swap out a new view layer. You completely change the interface. So we've got that in CKAN, but we've added a sort of a logic layer which provides an API, which provides another useful step, so that everything that you can do in CKAN from core, you can also call from an extension, or you can also call all these internal calls from over the API, so using it like a web service. So we think this is a really useful improvement over the standard model, over a standard sort of Django app, for example. Let's get the web browser out and just show you a CKAN as I work for data.gov UK. Of course, we want to show you that one. So we've got a fancy splash page, and then for us, you click on data to see CKAN. So CKAN is a catalogue of data sets. So here we have 25,000 data sets. Let's have a quick look at the first one. So we've got the title, and we've got who published it, what the license is. It's important to have lots of open licenses floating around, and then we've got a description, and that's all really important. Those are the main fields. And then we have, in this case, 43 links to data sets. So here we've got some zip files with some data in them. We've got some additional links which are the documentation, so some Microsoft Word documents, some data dictionaries, supporting documentation, all very valuable stuff. And we've got lots of extra little fields at the bottom. We've got comments turned on, people asking for corrections and things, which is all really healthy. So this is the data set, and then these are the resources, the links to the data, and many CKANs these days have the data stored in CKAN itself. And I'll just go back to our search page, which is the main way to browse around the data. So we have the normal sort of Google search. You can type in, I want some data on rivers, if I can spell correctly. And then down the side on the left, we have the facet search. So you say, well, I'm actually just interested in river data with an open government license, with an open license, and it's telling me there's 180 of those. And there's a whole bunch of closed data on our site as well to do with that. Or you might just be interested in river data that's got something to do with transport. So let's see what that comes up with. Waterborne freight, there we go. So this can be another way into the data and actually helps people browse around. I think that's the main thing. The two main use cases is searching and browsing. You're not sure what you want. What is out there? We've got 25,000 data sets here. It's difficult to get an idea of what you can search for. So that's it in a nutshell. So I'll log in as me, and you can see a bit of the back end as well. All the stars, that's my password. And this is the customized CKAN, but I can add a data set. Let's go and edit this first one, and you can see the data set form behind it. And it's as you might expect any web form. You can fill in the fields. All our resources here are listed. You can change these things. It's all as you might expect. So that's kind of basically what CKAN is. So I'll bring in the harvesting. So obviously, someone can sit there and type into this form, I've got a data set, here are the details, which is incredibly useful for people. About a third of our data sets are done that way. it's a little bit hard work, especially if you've got a data set which updates every month, for example. You don't want, you know, some poor civil servant coming here every month and adding the new URL. The much more exciting way is harvesting. I know a number of sites do exclusively harvesting. I know the US site and the Canadian site exclusively harvest. So I'll show you the back end of this. So this is when you have the data sets on another portal or another a list in metadata, a metadata file. It could be a GIS server with running GeoNetwork, for example, with everything coming out in ISO 19139 format, or it could be someone with another supplier's data portal supplying it in DCAT format or CKAN format. And so here on the back end, we've listed all the people who've done this. So here we have Adrià District Council. There might be, you know, 50,000 people living here. It's a pretty small place, and they've got Miso Portal is a little IT company in the UK who have who published this council's metadata. They've only done 7 harvests and they've only got 8 data sets. Really simple stuff. It's a WAF. So if I just put that in, this is all that URL goes to, and so they've got their 8 data sets here, and each one is in. This is the ISO format, UK version of it. So we can hit this button and it'll go and harvest from that again, and we can set it to harvest every day to keep it nice and up to date. So this harvesting model is really important to every data portal to be able to bring in regularly, keep in sync with people's other data stores. I think it's a great model. I won't show it to you because we haven't got it on data.gov UK right now, but we have the data store for CKAN where when any data set appears on the site, it will automatically in the background be downloaded and put into this database, essentially. Every CSV will be a table in this database, and you can run, it provides an API to this data. So I'll just show a quick demo of, you've probably seen it before, London Data.gov, data. Is that going to work? So here's another CKAN site, and they've got some graphs on the front, and it's just simply pulling data from the data store, saying, you know, give me this particular table from this year to this year. It returns a string of numbers, and then the web page can display it. So, you know, it's a very simple thing. Someone could write a blog post and take a bit of data out of the data store to show some more graphs. They could create an iPhone app with these things. All these kind of live data feeds, you know, bus timed, next bus indicators. But these need APIs, and by having your whole CKAN site in data store with an API given for free, it creates you know, it's a dead easy way to give all these app creators and blog posters and you know, people creating dashboards you know, a way to do that. If they wanted to do it on their own, of course they can. They can download a CSV and create their own little API, but it's a bit of a faff, and it's another barrier to doing these exciting things. So having a data store is really, really important. And I'll mention one more thing. I think the best example is data.gov, which is a spatial search. So obviously you can search using keywords and things, but this is called CKAN. Oh no, it's the spatial extension. But you can say, oh, I'm just interested in data. I'll put Canada, but the American site doesn't have many data sets on Canada. And there's a button. And very quickly, it's showing where I selected and said there's only 10,000 data sets in this box to do with this place. And of course, you know, someone said that all politics is local, and so being able to find your local data sets is very important. And there's also in the spatial extension there's a way to show the data on the map. So but I won't show you that. I'll show you in a second. How am I doing for time?
Do you want to see if anybody has any questions? We have about 3 minutes until the break.
No, I'll forge ahead. You can ask me questions in the break.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's
No
what CKAN is.
now.
What's happened in the last 12 months? There's been a big release of CKAN. The CKAN 2.3 release came out in March. The previous one to that was about a year before. So there's a bit of a long wait. But we got resource views, which is a very exciting way to customize the way you preview data sets. So, as a site administrator, I can set up for a particular CSV. I want to use this, this fancy D3 graph of it, an exciting live graph. Or I can say for all CSVs, I want to use this exciting graphing package, which automatically does it. Or for all doc formats, I've got this. We've got a Microsoft extension which will show any Microsoft format. So that's really exciting. Maybe hear more about that later today. And CKAN's templates are now responsive. So it's very, very important, of course, any website now to be viewable on a mobile device and it to look good and not to be too small, and people can actually get their fingers onto the buttons and things like that. And so that's all working now, and we're all seeing at least 30–40% of our clicks from mobile devices now. So that's great. We've got the package patch method, which it helps things over an API if you just want to change one field and not have to send the whole thing. And the security has been beefed up again. Lots and lots of people from the community contributing little security fixes, which is great. I'll show you the GitHub stats, but you can see in the shells. I'll quickly show you the extensions registry. This is new. This is someone's gone through GitHub and scraped all the CKAN extensions and put them on this site. There are stats. This is really where the exciting stuff about CKAN has been happening. The core CKAN is a big block of code. It's hard to get into, and there's maybe half a dozen developers contributing to it actively. But there are dozens and dozens of people doing these all around the world. I don't hear about half of them. And I'm just looking through the list earlier. There are some really, really exciting things that I want to check out. It's all on GitHub. It's all open source. So take them, use them, extend them, collaborate on them. That's brilliant. And then the final thing I'll mention is, apart from this last but one thing, the docs for CKAN are brilliant. A lot of effort's been gone into them to help you install, to extend, maintain CKANs. Lots and lots of questions are answered there. There's stuff about how to install CKAN from an Ubuntu package, from source, if you want to. There's Docker. There's a couple of other Docker installs which I can put up on the page for today. There's also DGU to go, which data.gov UK has done a vagrant install of CKAN. So there's plenty of ways to really easily install CKAN. There were a few hard edges on install CKAN a few years ago, and they've all been knocked off now, and it's relatively pain-free. If it can be ever said any install is pain-free, then CKAN is pain-free. And so I encourage you to get involved. There's a great place to put ideas for CKAN and discuss them. This page on GitHub, ideas and roadmap. We've got these 130 issues where people are discussing what extensions they want to do, changes to core CKAN. Lots and lots of discussion going on here. You can see the number of comments. All the core team get involved in this and discuss them on a weekly basis. So join the conversation. Let's work together and get excited about all these new things we can do. So I'm very happy to take one question. If anyone's got a burning question before we have our break, I don't want to keep everyone from their coffee. So if anyone's got a burning question, then please raise your hands. Wonderful. Well, I shall be around all day. Catch anyone else. But thank you very much.
So we're going to take a 15-minute coffee break. We also need to get set up for the lightning sessions. So from 10 until noon, we're going to have lightning sessions, so 15-minute speeches, discussions specifically on CKAN extensions. Just one thing, because there's quite a few more people than we were expecting, which is super awesome. But there's a few spots up at the front. When you guys come back, if you could fill out the whole room, that would be great. And if the speakers could grab a spot just at the front so it's easier to come and give your presentation, and we can move through them a lot quicker. Other than that, as I said, you can slip out during those presentations if needed to grab a coffee. There'll be communal coffee and snacks outside in the main lobby. And for right now, though, there is coffee in the mall, which is connected to here. I think you guys will find it. But if you could come back, we'll start at 10 o'clock sharp. You now, only thanks to David forging on, have 12 minutes. So. On the sorry, you guys can go. But on the webcast, we'll be back in 12 minutes. I don't know.
Oh, we gotta grab the pictures. Yeah.
Can you? I wish that.
I shared my presentation directly with your Google account. You'll be able to.
I'm just gonna stop mirroring my displays. Give me one sec. Okay, well, they're gonna see that, so that's.
She'll have to leave her browser. You should put a chair.
We're just getting everybody back in the room. We'll be back in a few minutes. Get started with our first lightning presentation, Phil Ashlock from data.gov. I'm just going to stop that. Phil, if you want to come up and get started. Okay.
Thank you.
And then going to...
Oh, wait. Sorry, 1 second.
All right, hello everyone. So I'm Phil Ashlock from data.gov, and so I'm mostly going to talk about something that is unfortunately not yet an extension, but it should be an extension soon, which we're calling Open with Apps, which is maybe a little bit of a wordplay, or maybe just sounds weird. Sort of trying to think of how we can sort of better integrate our CKAN data catalog with other applications and third-party services that can read the data. The same way that people sort of think of desktop applications as being able to read files on their file system. How can we sort of make that work just directly over the web? So to sort of start off with, I think just to sort of help frame some of my thinking about, opportunities like this, I think I've really started thinking much more about open data, and especially from national catalogs, really on the same level as infrastructure. And this term or sort of framing, I think, is not new. People have described their sort of geospatial data infrastructure as infrastructure, I think, for a long time. But I just think sort of framing it as sort of in the same context that we think of as physical infrastructure sort of helps bring sort of more significance and prominence to the role of these catalogs, and really thinking of them as platforms that we build on top of. And some of sort of my thinking has more recently been, I think, influenced and sort of inspired by just discovering some of the sort of foundational building blocks of data and as sort of modern technology that I recently discovered actually came out of Washington, D.C., which is where I currently live, and I just thought this would be sort of a fun thing to share. So this is the factory of the Hollerith company, which is Herman Hollerith, who was in the 1890s responded to a challenge from the U.S. Census Bureau to help them better tabulate the U.S. Census, because the previous one was taking almost 10 years to complete the tabulation. So obviously, if you're not completing tabulating by the time the next one, it's sort of you're doing it too slow. And so he had worked on a machine that led to essentially the kind of precursors to computing and machine sort of data processing. So this is the punch card system. And there's a plaque on his factory that sort of signifies the sort of significance of that way back in the 1890s on the C&O Canal in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. was where sort of essentially early computing came from in the 1890s. And just the idea that machine-readable data was something that was invented, and that it was in the 1890s, I think is just kind of something that's inspired me and sort of made me think of sort of how far we've come and how much more there is to do. And then a similar sort of amazing thing I discovered is sort of how early origins of sharing information, communication networks. Sort of a great thing that also came out of Washington, D.C. also in the 1890s. So Alexander Graham Bell lived in Washington, D.C. for a while after he started his work inventing essentially the telephone, did a number of other inventions. And this is the building where there was the first ever test of was called the photophone, which was the first optical transmission of a conversation, but essentially the precursor to fiber optic networks. And despite Alexander Graham Bell being thought of as all around the phone, he actually essentially on his deathbed claimed that this was his most significant invention. And given that most data and communication these days happens over fiber optic networks as opposed to the traditional plain old telephone system. I think there's something really interesting to say about that. He was right in my mind that was probably his most significant invention. But in any case, I think it's just kind of nice to frame sort of the work that we're all doing and sort of what it could be in 100 years, as far as sort of providing infrastructure for the future of of our communities. But now to sort of more practical things with data.gov and sort of talking about the work that we're doing. So just a little bit of background about data.gov. So the URL, obviously, data.gov. This is not CKAN. This is our front page. This is actually just WordPress. And so we have sort of WordPress and CKAN that sort of play together basically just through templates and some navigation that is sort of woven together. But sort of provides us some other space to sort of curate content and sort of have some other content management system work that we do there. But mostly what I should say, as far as our catalog, I think David had mentioned this in the earlier presentation. We have moved recently to essentially a 100% federated model. So previously, data.gov had been sort of the central clearinghouse and in some cases sort of a bottleneck for publishing data, and it's gone to this decentralized model where each agency is publishing their data catalog on their agency website through a standardized metadata format, which we've sort of all worked together as part of our open data policy and based on the DCAT international standard, but we're also using some traditional existing geospatial metadata standards. As far as basic stats on CKAN, you can see the util/status API call and our extensions. Most of these are geospatial and geospatial harvesting. And we also have some additional extensions specifically for our flavor of the metadata schema, the project open data, data.json extensions, which are used by a number of other federal agencies. Since they're each agency is required to publish their own data catalog, there's been a lot of independent CKAN installations throughout the federal government. But mostly I'm here right now to talk about this new feature that we've started to experiment with, which we're calling Open with Apps, which is, like I was saying before, just that model of having the option of opening up a file with different applications. So like when you right-click on a file on a desktop operating system, you usually get a couple different options of whether you want to open that with Microsoft Excel or OpenOffice or what have you. And that same model, sort of seems like it's something that can, apply in the cloud online with different services that you can just send data over the wire to. So at first we kind of started experimenting with this idea, looking at services that would support that, and then at different sort of ways that we could work with those companies and services to sort of test it out and go through all the other sort of arrangements. But as sort of the first sort of example, I will go through service Plotly. Just see if I can just open a new tab here. So if I'm on a particular dataset page, I get these. Unfortunately, I've got some layout issues here, but we've got these buttons, and so I'm just going to open up this CSV file, and you can see it sort of handing it over to Plotly, and it's just sending the data over the wire. Hopefully, this will actually work, and I should also. Oh, it's too large. I didn't see that. All right, this worked before. Maybe it was the other one. Yes. I'll explain why it took a little while for those buttons to load in a second too. So there is a file size limit, which we'll get to in a minute. All right. Demos never work when you're actually up here, right? All right. That looks more promising. All right. So in actually both cases, the two services that we started working with Plotly and CartoDB, we do require user accounts, but they handle, I think, the transition fairly well. So you can see it's pulled in that data source into Plotly, and I'm not going to go crazy here, but I guess just to show something interesting. Let's do like or something that actually looks like a visualization. So this is the alternative fuel stations data set, which shows like locations of electronic vehicle like recharging stations and things like that. So I'll just group these by let's say the fuel or the do that as X, and then just the state as so I'm just going to do a histogram of these different kinds of, I guess, of all the different states and all the different sort of kinds of fuel stations. You can sort of just see a histogram. I'm sure someone could make a much more meaningful, interesting visualization out of this, but Plotly is a pretty robust platform. You can sort of think of it as Google Docs for doing data viz and collaborating on data viz. And so we also have done something similar with CartoDB, which is a mapping service. I'm not going to go through the whole demo, but they put together a nice little animated GIF that sort of goes through essentially that same sort of workflow. And unfortunately, I did see that there was maybe some issues with this morning, so following up with them to see if there's maybe some hiccups with that handoff. But essentially, the same model works there as well. And so as far as how this works, I think I mentioned before, this isn't an extension yet. Right now, pretty much all the logic for this is just in the template. All that it is URLs. So we're just we have the URL of the file on the dataset page, and we're just appending that to the URL of the service. So whether it's Plotly, Plotly URL or CartoDB URL, and these services have been designed to be able to dynamically just pull in any arbitrary URL with a file format that they support. And this is actually something that is supported by a number of other services that people commonly use, like Google Docs and Microsoft Office Online. And so we're sort of looking at other services that we can expand this to. I didn't show this, but we also do this with services like Esri's ArcGIS, because we have some data sets that have their REST API and WMS and WFS for geospatial APIs. Those can sort of be handed off as well. So a lot of people look at this and they think, oh, you guys integrated with these services. I guess you could say it's integration, but there's very little code or coordination that was done in this. So we have no formal like account or we're not a customer of these services. We negotiated obviously to make sure that it was okay. All the user accounts are handled by these services, so we don't have to deal with that. We did have to go sort of contact them, make sure that this was going to work, that it was okay with them, go through things with legal since we're government to make sure that the terms of service were government friendly, and so in both cases had to sort of make some updates there. We also experimented before actually having them or us do anything with a Chrome extension that simulates this sort of generating these URLs, which I can share with you. I mean, I think that's something that we'll continue to do with working with other people, is being able to just demonstrate sort of how this works without actually anyone having to do any actual code updates yet. So additional issues that sort of come into play here. Metadata quality, we definitely have tons of issues with metadata quality across data.gov. It's something we're sort of constantly always trying to provide feedback and ways to improve with the way agencies are publishing that. And we do some basic checks, which is, if you saw, there was sort of, in some cases it took a while for that button to load. It's doing some additional sort of verification with just JavaScript checking the file format actually works, but there's still instances where that can be tricky to detect. Because each service is only going to support certain kinds of file formats. We want to make sure the file format is actually what we think it is before we provide that option. There's also file size limits, which is something that we don't always have that the file size metadata as part of our metadata, and so that we kind of rely on these third-party services to detect that, since we're not able to filter that. But we're looking at incorporating more of that in the future so that we can prevent showing the option if it's not actually an option. So I think other opportunities that you could sort of expand on this is third-party services that can sort of directly integrate with the data store. Currently on the main data.gov catalog, we don't use the data store directly on that catalog. We do connect to some other CKAN instances in the federal government that do, but I think there's obviously lots of opportunities for third-party services to tap into that. And I know with some other data catalogs, with Socrata, they've been able, there are, I think, examples of how people have made like Excel plugins, which use the Socrata or OData API. So I think there's interesting opportunities there as far as being able to tie, common, traditional desktop applications into some of these data sources as well. And then integration with specific kinds of APIs as well. So I mentioned some geospatial sort of standardized APIs that make that easy. But I think if there's specific, domain-specific APIs, certain applications, third-party services can plug into, there's opportunities there. And then especially when there's a standardized sort of kind of data set, that there's, domain-specific applications. And one thing that we have started to do in our metadata schema in the US is at least have a field where we can sort of identify a data standard that a data set implements. It's not widely used, but obviously that would be necessary as far as being able to connect to services. So what's next? We actually package this as an extension so that it's not just sort of in our template. I think also defining this as a spec that other platforms can implement, rather than it just be something that's specific to CKAN. Obviously, this is something that lots of platforms could implement. So we haven't really documented that, but again, it's very simple. We're just generating URLs with a couple of parameters, and then ideally, once you have platforms that facilitate all these, actually being able to share kind of those format profiles of. Is that time? Cool. So being able to sort of share the registry of the different third-party services that your catalog provides, just to sort of, I think, help grow the ecosystem and show what's available, I think would be really great. So this is a feature that we track on GitHub. Everything we do publicly on GitHub. We have an issue tracker, and so this is a feature that is tracked there, and the issue is closed, but feel free to add comments there if you have other questions. It's 602 on the data.gov GitHub repo, and this presentation is also online at this URL. And that's it.
Thanks so much. I won't lose this address. So now we're going to have our first online presentation. So Adrià, are you ready?
Yes.
Welcome. Okay. We are going to...
Hello.
Can you guys hear okay?
Hello, can you hear me fine? Hello.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Some people are responding. That's all we needed. Yes. You're great, so you can share your screen on your side, and I'll step out of the way.
Thank you.
We'll let you know, though, when there's 2 minutes left.
Right.
Adrià, are you ready to present?
Yes.
Okay, you can go anytime.
Thank you very much. So, hello everybody. My name is Adrià Mercader. I'm a CKAN core developer. I work for Open Knowledge, helping organizations opening up their data and publishing it online using CKAN, and providing consulting and development services around CKAN. And traditionally, one of the areas I've been more involved with is the geospatial side of CKAN. And obviously, a lot of CKAN, of open data, has a geospatial component. And I think that CKAN has a good set of features to publish and work with spatial data. So I'd like to give a quick overview of what's available and give some examples of work being done by people around on this field. To do so, I structured the presentation on 3 sections. I think I've been a bit overly ambitious, so I probably will skip very fast through the last 2 and focus more on the first one, which is showcase what's available on out of the box on the spatial extension, so that just by installing and configuring them, what you can get up and running with a plain CKAN instance. And then probably I'll give a few examples on how this base functionality can be extended and expanded. And finally, if there's time, I might give some pointers to see and start some discussion around where the spatial features could move forward to. Maybe. So, we start on the out-of-the-box features. The main spatial functionality can be found basically on 2 extensions. One is CKAN Spatial, which holds basically the backend side of things, like the spatial model for assigning geometries to datasets, the spatial query-related logic, and the harvesters for importing spatial metadata from other sources, as well as the CSW interface. And more recently, we have moved out of CKAN Spatial into a separate extension, all the view plugins on the front end to make easier to develop them and contribute to them. And this is on CKAN GeoView. So let's have a quick look at each of these items. Excuse me. So basically, at the most basic level, what CKAN Spatial does is providing a spatial field for the default CKAN schema, which allows you to assign a geometry to a particular data set. And this is done passing a GeoJSON string to CKAN, which is then stored in PostGIS or indexed in Solr, depending on the setup. And then it allows for instance, to show a small widget with dataset X on the dataset page, but more importantly, it allows you to perform spatial queries on the catalog. So either on the front end via the map widget that allows you to define an area of interest, as we've shown before on data.gov, or via the API, you can provide the bounding box to filter the results, and you can combine this spatial filter with any other query parameter of the standard CKAN search, which allows you to perform spatial and textual searches, like this example, which is basically we're searching for CSV files that are contained on a specific area. It's worth mentioning that this spatial search has different backends, and each of them with different characteristics. I've put a link there to the documentation where each of the backends are thoroughly explained, and the different pros and cons of each one are described. I won't go into much detail now, but basically it's worth having a read and deciding what's best for your scenario before going on the spatial search way. Another really commonly used feature, as we heard before, is the harvesting of spatial metadata. And this is a really common setup for special CKAN deployments, where it may be just one CKAN instance that imports records from a catalog like GeoNetwork or GeoNode to act as the front end for the metadata. But also CKAN where another scenario is where CKAN acts like as an aggregator for other catalogs and endpoints and kind of aggregates all the metadata in one place. There are two harvesters in the spatial extensions that work against XML metadata documents based on the ISO 19139 metadata format. One for CSW servers, which is a standard for exchanging information between your spatial catalogs, and another one for web accessible folders, like the one that David showed before. These harvesters use the standard CKAN harvester framework and also provide extension points to modify their behavior, as we will see in a while. There's a validation step that can also be configured to enable different validators, for instance, to validate against an Inspire or other spatial metadata profile. And once the validation is passed, CKAN datasets get created as a normal dataset, and they can be combined with any other non-geospatial datasets and accessed via the web interface or the API. And if it's enabled, there's also a CSW interface, which is actually powered by CSW, which is a fully compliant CSW server. And by default, it's worth noting that this is just for other special data sets harvested from other sites, although there's probably work being done to support on any data set created in CKAN on some other projects like Publica Mundi, which I will mention again later on. That will probably cover the most important stuff on the backend side of things. On the front end, as I said, we have consolidated all the geospatial views on CKANX GeoView. All these plugins are based on Leaflet and OpenLayers, which are two widely used, I would say, industry standard open source mapping libraries. And these allow rendering of many geospatial formats, the most popular ones probably being GeoJSON and WMS, but there are many more. You can check the README on the repository to check what's available. And the viewers are basic, but they're meant to provide a basic overview of the resource, and they can also serve as a basis to develop more complex ones. And also, this is a quite recent extension, so there's quite a lot of exciting new features and enhancements that could be applied to them. So if you are familiar with Leaflet or OpenLayers and can contribute, just check the issues on the repository or create your own. It's also worth mentioning that, of course, for tabular data like CSVs or Excels, which have special information, that's generally a latitude or a longitude field, as part of the default recline-based viewers that is shipped with CKAN, this can be plotted on a map as well. and this is standard CKAN functionality that there's no need to install any other extension. So up until now, I've covered the stuff that it's available out of the box, and really quickly, I'm going to mention some ways in which this can be expanded or extended. I'll probably I'll move quickly through the first ones. I'll just mention. I actually will skip this one. This is just the changes that we did on top of the default harvesting capabilities for data.gov. But basically, it's easier just to mention that you can develop new harvesters for different harvest sources, like we did on data.gov for Esri GeoPortal or ArcGIS REST sources. And you can also add custom validators or even transform the remote metadata format if it's not ISO-based. And of course, you can extend the parser to extract other fields from the XML files which are not parsed by default. And all of this can be done from within your own extension without having to modify the code on CKAN Spatial. I pasted a couple of examples there, and also linking to the source of the extensions that that power them on data.gov and another satellite data site. On the advanced viewers, I'll just quickly mention that this, of course, you can build more advanced viewers based on the basic ones, like the one on data.gov.uk that allows you to combine services and from different data sets, not just the one that you're looking at. But if I have time, I will quickly want to mention two examples of integration with other external tools. And the first one will be GeoServer, which is a very well-known and widely used software for publishing geodata online. And this has been integrated with CKAN. The integration can go at the very simplest level. You can link CKAN resources to GeoServer outputs. So, for instance, on the first case, the Copenhagen Open Data Portal publishes some data through GeoServer, and then it creates a CKAN resource for each of the different formats. So that allows you to download and visualize the data in different formats from the same data source, and you can download it in GeoJSON, CSV, or shapefile coming from the same source. Other instances have followed a closer integration with GeoServer actually publishing the data that gets uploaded to CKAN. There have been different approaches for this, and apologies if I missed some, but two examples are the National Geothermal Data System and Publica Mundi, which both are based on CKAN and provide mechanisms to expose GeoServer on GeoServer some of the data sets that are uploaded to CKAN. So definitely check the links if you are interested in something similar. We've just heard Phil talking about CartoDB, so I won't go into this. Just follow the links, and looking forward for the extension to make it generic enough. And I think that Joel from Ontodia will talk. I'm sure that he will talk about a bit more about the work they have been done with integrating CartoDB and embedding CartoDB visualizations on CKAN itself to give more value to the data hosted on CKAN. And I think just in terms of what's in storage, it's just three pointers to what could possibly be nice features to have on the spatial front. I really would like to see some geospatial support, proper geospatial support on the data store, allowing to upload spatial formats and output as well geospatial formats. Geocoding integration both on the metadata and on the data side, and more broadly on making easier to publish geodata through CKAN itself. And of course, there's a huge potential on that area. So if you have any particular idea or suggestion, just create an issue on the ideas and roadmap repository, which is linked there, and hopefully we can discuss it and make something happen And just a couple of links, which will be available on the slides, to the documentation on the spatial side, the repositories I've mentioned, and the contributing guidelines. And of course, I think there's not enough time for questions, but ping me on IRC or on the mailing list if you have any doubt regarding stuff I presented. And yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Adrià. That's great. We'll have David come back up. There you go. If you want to just put a new tab, I guess, and then share in there.
Great. I've got 3 extensions I want to show you, which I've been involved with. The first one is the report extension. Now, one of the problems of any website is that if you want to show complicated information on the page, a lot of numbers, might need a bit of calculation in the background to do. You don't want to do that on the server. If it takes 10 seconds to produce, the user will have gone away by the time it's produced. And also, your server will have been sat there doing very hard sums for 10 seconds, and that's not very scalable. So for so it's really for management reports and anything that takes a few seconds to produce, maybe a few minutes to produce. I've got this reports extension. So here's the URL. I hope you can all see that. CKANX report. And I'll just show you a quick demo on our site. So if I click on, I'm still logged in, that's exciting. I click on reports. Now you can see we've got 11 or so reports here. I'll click on the first one. This is quite a simple one. These are data sets which have got apps marked against them. So the community contribute applications they've written and mention which data set they've used the data from. So I've just done a simple table here of the app versus the data set. And then other useful things to be able to filter by are the publisher, the top-level publisher, which is the government department, the top-level department that maybe the agencies reports to, and the theme. So for example, someone came to us and said, I'm in the Department of Business. What apps have been made for my data? And I say, oh, look at the report. Let's sort by top-level publisher. Here we go, Department of Business. Here we go, Sketch, Map, and EnviroFind. And so without needing any programming or Excel skills, they can quickly find that information. So the sorting by columns is quite handy. So this has been, as I say, pre-calculated every night. This table, it can be quite big, and it's saved in the database. In our case, is the back end, and they can download it as CSV and JSON, and that again doesn't require any calculation, just comes straight from the database. So that's quite neat. And then we said, well, let's go to the next level up, a more complicated report with display options. So here is a broken links report, and here the options are you can choose a different publisher. So let's find the department I'm most associated with, Cabinet Office, and it's showing us we've got a broken link, and I can also include sub-publishers, so agencies which report to the Cabinet Office. We have a nice hierarchy of publishers at data.gov UK, and that's again another feature. So we can say other, DirectGov is an agency to do with Cabinet Office, and they have some broken links as well, so we might want to ring them up and point them in this page and say, well, you've got some problems. So again, we can sort by the different columns, which has been failing most longest, and again we can email on the CSV, and then we can get the index of all publishers. We've got 1,000 publishers here. Out of all these, which is the worst one? It's got the most broken links. Department of Health. Oh dear, that's not very healthy. We've got some stats, and again, it's lightning quick. It's all cached, so I'm really pleased about that. And it'd be dead easy to provide a bit of D3 and add a graph here. we've got another feature we did quite a while ago, the site analytics feature, another extension just mentioned in passing, and you can, and so we use our Google analytics data, and we show which publishers are most popular, which data sets are most popular, and so this graph we could very easily put on our report. D3 just gets it in JSON format, and it all kind of links together quite nicely. So it doesn't have to be a table that it's shown in this report. It can be visual as well. Which brings us nicely onto broken links. I'll say a little bit more about how we get this information. So we have the CKANX archiver. Oh, shall I leave reports? Maybe I'll say one more thing. So on the README page, it says quite a lot about how to produce one of these reports. They're really quick to add. So all you need is a bit of Python which produces the data, and then it returns a bit of JSON with a table, rows, and any stats you want to add, as you might expect. And then we just write a little bit of a snippet of HTML that will display this table. So table, rows. It's all pretty simple stuff. It gives you the data at the top, and then you simply need to add your extension registration of the report. So you need this little bit of stuff in your extension to say this report exists, list it in the list of reports. So I think that's really simple, very quick to do. I knock up a report in under an hour if someone wants me to do that. Lots of management reports, but we choose to make them all public unless there's user information, which is private personal information. So you can see we've got 11 up there, growing up from 3 or 4. How am I doing? Oh, great. So broken links. So we have the CKANX archive extension, which was written for us originally by OKF, and so they've got their fork in the I think it's the CKAN fork. There we go. And then we have our own one, which we've carried on extending and extending. So this, every time someone puts a new link into CKAN, a new resource, then it will automatically in the background, using a queue, it will go in, try the link and try and download that CSV. And if there's a problem, a 404 or the socket times out or some other problem, then it will note it in here and it will mark it as broken. So let's go and see one of these, Department of Health. Is that a good example? Here we go. So some expenditure report gives a 404. It's failed 4 times. It's only pretty recently, only this week it's been a problem. So maybe their server's gone down temporarily. Maybe it's back up now. But I'll just still 404. So I'll just show the data set, how we display it here. So this is our data set. What a terrible name. And no description. So that's another reason for bringing them up. But we've got this big icon here saying there is error with this resource. Then we'll just look at the resource page and we've got a preview of it. And we're saying could not be downloaded, 404, attempted on this date, tried 4 times. Sometimes we ring people up and say, your link's broken. They say, no, it's not. And then you have to say we tried it on this date and it didn't work. We tried it on this date, it didn't work. It hasn't been working for 6 months maybe. And you've got the evidence kind of to back them up. I think they could say it's just a temporary glitch. And so we find it extremely valuable having a bit more information than just we tried it and it didn't work. And you're the worst publisher out of all our publishers, and it's embarrassing for our site. It's embarrassing for you as well. So that's broken links. That's really helped us sort out a problem with broken links. We had, I think these stats, it's like getting out to 25% of our links were broken, which is terrible, and now it's down to 7 or 8 through working with them all, which is great. And then the next one I will show you, once we've downloaded all these files successfully, we do some QA on them. We check them against the 5 stars of openness. You've probably heard of this, Tim Berners-Lee idea. The idea is you get all 5 stars if it's openly licensed, if it's openly accessible, it's not broken. It's structured data in an open format, and for the 4 or 5 stars, it has to be RDF on the web, linkable and linked to. So it's a little bit controversial to get 4 or 5 stars, but the key thing is getting to 3 stars. A good CSV, open license, it works. And so our stats are showing we've got 7,000 of them. The 16,000 is quite a lot of 0 stars. I guess there's a lot of closed licenses on our site, a lot that don't work. So again, we've got a report. You can change the publisher. It includes sub-publishers. Plenty of people want that. We can show who's got the most stars as some sort of indicator. Hydrographic Office, they release a lot of data sets in good formats. So I'll just have a quick look at their report. Yeah, XML file gets 3 stars. I guess maybe a bit of debate about that. But this is so. Once we downloaded the file, we run various checkers. Is it really a CSV? Is it really an XML file? So we use the Unix tool file, and we use magic, and we use a local tool which is very, very good at Microsoft formats to determine Excel files really well. We use open source tools to open a Python library for opening spreadsheets, open office files, and I sort of do basic stats. Has it got more than one row in this CSV? Is it a reasonable shape, or is it just a bit of text with a few commas in it? So we use as many heuristics we can to get a good idea of the format of the file, which is a key indicator here. And this has been really helpful into pressuring our publishers to increase the quality of their data. So I encourage you. I know the Americans have used this as well, and encourage more of you to use the archiver and QA. And of course, if it's a great spreadsheet, then it can be automatically put into your data store. Right. The last one I want to show you is the issues extension. So these are all issues. If the link is broken, that's an issue. If it's got 0 stars because it's a rubbish format, if it's got 1 star, it's a PDF data in PDF. We hate that. We want to raise an issue even automatically or manually as a person in managing the data portal, or maybe a member of the public wants to raise an issue on this data, saying this is out of date or it doesn't open. There's some sort of issue with it. So we want to raise issues. Just as a programmer, we love GitHub issues. We want to raise issues on data sets. So I'll show you our test server because it's all very much in progress and it looks pretty ugly, but it give you the idea. And we'd love someone to help us do this. Not that one, this one. I think it's this one. No, not that one. Oh, it's disappeared. But you can see it. We've got a list of issues here. So in the past, people have been creating comments with their issues in. It's unstructured data. If they create an issue, it can be open and closed. We can track how long it stays open. Whether the Cabinet Office gets back to this person. The first response should be within a few days, even if they don't solve the problem. We can get the metrics and see who is doing well and bad at responding to these issues. Let's log in and create an issue. No, I think you get the idea. It has the name, a title for an issue. It has a description. You can connect it also to a particular resource rather than just a data set. Other people can see that these issues are raised already without having to, hassle their Cabinet Office or the department again. They can see the responses and where it's been handled well or badly. It's a really kind of mature way to do opening up data. And there are a lot of problems with the metadata, a lot of problems with these data sets, so it's a really valuable tool. I've got 2 minutes, so I'm going to mention another thing. Have I got started to put documentation on little pages site for our publishers, how to use our backend, like really simple stuff, how to create a user, how to log in and stuff. So this is a process. If you're in, a local authority and you want to publish some data in data.gov UK, here's your little guidance page. It tells you how to create an account, do the capture, click on the right email, so you validate your account, and then you And then you've got a user account just like anyone else, any member of the public. You can leave a comment on a page. You can say I've created an app, but you want to go to the next stage. You want to get the privileges to create a data set, and so you go to your department and you click on this thing, request to become an editor. So this is a customization we've done. It's not an extension, but we're very happy to put it out as an extension if other people are interested. And then you fill in this form saying, well, I'm an important person with responsibility for publishing data. Send request, and then someone in Cabinet Office, the central department, will get an email saying this has been sent, and where is it? So there we go. As someone on the central team, they will. Yeah, here we go. Here's the email. A request has been made. You can click on something, and you get to this page, the permissions page, and you can add the user. So John Smith is now going to be an editor for the Department of Health, and then it'd be nice to email them back automatically, but you'd have to do it manually at the moment. But this is the key thing I want to show you. I don't know if you can see that. Publisher requests. So these are a list of all the requests to be an editor, to be a publisher, and the date, and the publisher. And so as a manager here, I can accept a whole bunch of requests, and I can also see if the requests have been ignored for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they're getting annoyed, and they're likely to phone us up. And occasionally we get a call saying, "Why haven't you approved my request? It's been 3 weeks now." And you can check on this form. So that's pretty cool. So I won't show any more. I'll spend my time. So that's, I think, 4 exciting extensions to CKAN, which data.gov UK has worked on reasonably unilaterally, and we're going to get some collaboration on any of those. Very, very happy to help other people as well. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, David. It's great that you're sharing that. We are working on a toolkit as well, so it's easy for people and other countries that are starting this to be able to see that information. So we're going to go to Alex, another virtual presentation. Alex, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me properly?
Yeah, I'm just going to bring the mic down to you. Okay.
Okay, hello. Yes, sound is okay?
Yeah,
Good,
I'm
then
mute.
let me show the presentation. All right, you see it, right? Okay, so yeah, greetings to everyone from Spain, over to Canada and the folks also worldwide seeing the webcast. I'm going to introduce you to WP CKAN, which is a WordPress plugin, not a CKAN extension, but obviously made with CKAN in mind, which interfaces CKAN with WordPress and vice versa. So little infos about me. My name is Alex Corby. I'm a freelance software developer from Spain, currently based in Berlin, Germany. And since a couple of years, I have been focusing on open source projects in the area of civic hacking and open data. My involvement in this area started with OpenSteps, which is an independent project that I co-started with my partner, Margot Thierry, in 2013, and consisted basically in traveling around the world documenting open knowledge related projects. So basically, what we would do is to travel around or along different countries and meet individuals and organizations working on all things open, learning from them and documenting these encounters on our website, open-steps.org. Parallel to that, and together with the organizations we collaborated with, we organized also workshops on the topic of open data visualization. Through OpenSteps, I got the opportunity to get in contact with Open Development Cambodia, which is an organization doing a great job in Cambodia and the Southeast Asian regions, advocating for transparency and access to information. So this way, after meeting them, I got involved in the Open Development Mekong project, which basically consists on building an interregional open data platform for the Mekong River countries in the Southeast Asian region. So let me walk you through briefly through the systems architecture, because it helps to understand the motivation behind the creation of this plugin. As the folks from data.gov mentioned, the ODM, Open Development Mekong architecture, is also based on two main components, which is a multi-site WordPress frontend containing 5 country sites for each of the countries plus 1 interregional site, and a CKAN-based centralized data hub. So already in the design stage of the project, the team identified the need for a bridge between both components, with the goals of harmonizing and interconnecting them, reducing data duplication, providing or allowing integrated search functionalities, and in general, like allowing each component to do what it was meant for. Meaning WordPress, it's a well-known CMS system, good for editorial work, such as news publications or reports, and CKAN as a database for machine-readable information that can be integrated into the content displayed on the front end. So since the beginning of the implementation, we kept the genericity in mind. So thinking about other developers who might be interested in using this for their own projects. And so we didn't implement any specific features that were only part of the requirements of ODM. So let me show you or tell you about the features. The first one allows the editors to add related datasets to posts or pages. So in a nutshell, the plugin exposes a meta box on the WordPress dashboard, which allows the editors to first input some keywords on that suggestion box, receive the suggestions which are pulled from the through the CKAN API, and relate or add this related content to the WordPress post. In order to retrieve this information, a shortcode can be used and configured using a certain number of parameters, which allows the editors to decide which information gets presented, how there is parameters for implementing pagination, etc. So probably it's too small for you to see, but this picture depicts the HTML structure returned by that shortcode, which basically it's a fixed HTML structure with divs and marked with classes that allows CSS customization. The second feature of the plugin allows to trigger queries on the database. So by specifying a shortcode, as you see on the screen, we can do queries such as looking for the information about forestry that belongs to a certain organization as ODM Cambodia here, and that are stored under a certain group, like CKAN Group, in this case the news. And last, the third feature offers functionality on the other direction, allowing editors to archive posts or pages into the CKAN database. So again, the plugin exposes a new meta box on the WordPress dashboard, which allows editors to select the organization where the dataset should be stored, the group, and then when this archiving should take place. So for the development, or we've based the development on existing libraries, open source libraries, that have made the development process easier. The first one is the CKAN PHP library by Silex Consulting, which, for those of you who don't know, it's basically a set of utilities and methods for accessing the CKAN API or using PHP. By the way, if the authors, the creators of the library are in the room or watching this, we we extended actually the number of methods in order to fulfill the requirements of our project, and submitted pull requests with those extensions, with those additions. So I would like to invite the authors to take a look at that. Second library that we are using is Twitter's Type Ahead, which is a JavaScript library which allows or gives these suggestions, auto-completion functionality for the suggestion box. And then we use also Analog, which is basically a login library for PHP. Sorry. Speaking about contribution, I would like to mention that within the project, I mean, not only we are using a lot of the extensions that folks just mentioned, and accelerating through that the development process, but also the team has contributed to the community in a certain way. The version 2.2 of CKAN was translated by the team in Khmer, Thailand, Thai, and Vietnamese languages, which took a lot of time and effort. And we have also tried to contribute to the development of CKAN by contributing with code. So I believe that's it. That went quite quick. I believe there are still some minutes. I would just say that, of course, the developers out there and everyone is kindly invited to use it, to spread the word about the plugin, and contribute to it, since there are still many features that could be implemented, we all know how to do that. So please feel free to visit the GitHub repository that you see on your screen. And thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Alex. So we're going to switch over to Joel. I had your presentation.
I have it here too, just in case.
Okay. I just can't remember which one it was. Just give me 1 second. No, that one?
No, I can just load it from here.
Okay.
Just give me a minute.
So many things open.
It's not mine. Somebody else.
Yeah, that's okay. I think it's actually right here. Just give me 1 sec. Sorry.
Oh,
there we go.
Thanks.
It was somewhere. Actually, and one more thing, we just need to share it with the webcast.
Right.
There we go. Okay, now we're good.
Oh, we're good. So, thank you, Ashley. I'll make this quick. So, raw data in and sites out. I got it from Gigo, garbage in, garbage out. And it's almost a commentary on the state of open data. So just to give some context, I'm sure a lot of people here in this room know about this report from McKinsey in 2013 that says $3 trillion in economic potential for open data. It's almost like a reverse Dr. Evil moment, right? So how do we tap that potential? Right now, we're not there yet. And everything that is really all right in open data land, so I'm just putting some context in what we're doing. So there's this CFA fellow, Code for America fellow, Dave Guarino, and he said that, the problem is ETL is one of the things, the dirty thing that people don't talk about in open data. And he said, we should focus on ETL. Also, Anthea Watson-Strong from Google says one reason why is the government is not eating its own dog food. And maybe if we eat our own dog food, things will become better organically. And Waldo Yakit from the US Open Data also says, the quandary of the civil servant is if they publish open data and if it's wrong, and as we all know, data is always some defects in it, sometimes he'll get penalized for it. So how do we incentivize publishing open data? Of course, Mark, who's in the room also. One of my favorite is, his April Fool's Day, I hate open data portals. And I'll let Mark talk about that later. But, right now the state of open data is not really right there yet to tap that potential for $3 trillion. Because here's open data today. Basically, it's a fancy FTP server, right? Nothing to really do. It's just a catalog. But right now, I compare us. We're like in the AOL CompuServe era of open data. All these. If you remember, I'm dating myself when AOL, Prodigy, and CompuServe were still around. We need to have real linked data. So what we're doing, the great thing about CKAN is it's open source, so we're scratching our itch. And we're doing some things and contributing into the community. So we developed some things like OpenRefine. Derry created the OpenRefine extension about 3 years ago. From an old version of CKAN, we rehabilitated it and updated it for version 3 of the API. We also created FME. I don't know if you're familiar with FME. It's from Safe Software. It's like the Swiss Army knife of ETL for the enterprise. It can connect to about 300 connectors, so we created a CKAN writer for that. But that's proprietary software. It's a bit expensive. So we also did the same thing for Pentaho Kettle, which is an open source version of FME for ETL. And we're also working with people like Acela who have connectors to CKAN, so you can get more transactional data, not just a data vomit every time there's a hackathon, right? But you push people to contribute data. So here's a quick run through of the OpenRefine CKAN connector. So here you can see there's something that we're doing for Newark. They got this snowplow track. It's not geocoded, so we pump it into OpenRefine. And once we clean it and geocoded it against our dog fooding geocoder, which I'll talk about a bit later, we can then directly upload it into CKAN. And once it's uploaded, you can get the data right there. So you can see the whole track, not only how the data was transformed, we also upload the recipe for CKAN. So you can see what the operations were done to transform that data. So you have the traceability. We also created the CKAN writer. So the great thing about FME is it allows you to create ETLs using this visual environment. So oftentimes a lot of when you go to an installation, they're a bit apprehensive that, okay, do I need to learn Python? Do I need to write all these ETL scripts manually? I don't have the personnel to do it. So FME is more of an enterprise ETL IDE environment, so maybe that is easier to maintain. So we created that writer. For the interest of time, I'll just go through this. Right now, we're using it for aggregating a lot of data that we're doing across the US. So sometimes we would source crime data for a certain county, and we need to compute some indicators on it. We use FME to compute those indicators and create those aggregations. And I'll show a bit of that later. So here's the original source data, and then we aggregated and did some per capita calculations and indicators on the crime rates using FME. And so we're helping with onboarding great data, so it all starts with data. And now we also want to take CKAN beyond just serving data. So the things that we did is the dog fooding data enricher. Basically what that is if you upload some GeoJSON spatial files into your CKAN, say boundaries for neighborhood association, boundaries for whatever, like neighborhoods that the way you describe it in your jurisdiction, not the way Google describes neighborhoods in your jurisdiction. What you can do is you can upload those spatial files into your CKAN, and then you can use those files to enrich and geocode other files that you want to onboard, which we did with OpenRefine. So, for example, we did this for Newark. The way Newark, Google describes neighborhoods in Newark, New Jersey was kind of weird. So we can't really use the Newark, the neighborhood property from Google. So what Newark did was they uploaded neighborhoods as they saw it and wards as they saw it, and then we can geocode against that. So good data drives more great data being onboarded into the portal. Another thing that we did is an application generator framework, which is basically oftentimes a use case for a lot of people who want to create apps. But oftentimes an app in ARM 90% of the time is just a search on a certain data set. So there's a quick way to create a web app from a CSV that you uploaded to a portal. We also did Car2DB integration, so it's tight Car2DB integration. And we also did Discourse. I don't know if you're familiar with Discourse. It's like the 21st century forum software. Right now, the main way to comment on CKAN datasets is using Discuss. But what we found is Discuss is often used not as commenting, but complaining software, not conversations. So we thought maybe we can use something more modern that allows people to have conversations around data. And finally, I mentioned indicators quickly beforehand. We did all this because we wanted to compute indicators, and I'll quickly talk about that too. So here's a quick overview of what the dog fooding data enricher does. So in Newark, what they have is, they have all the lat longs, but they don't know the block lot, the neighborhood, and zip code. They upload that into their CKAN portal. We expose an API endpoint, and then they drive this as part of the ETL process to get block lot, neighborhood, and zip code in their data sets. So data in the portal, making data in the portal better, right? So it's self-referential. So here's the app generator framework. Basically, a lot of these, like I mentioned before, a lot of these search web apps are nothing more than CSVs, and then we put a little search mechanism on top of it. We allow, we're doing this for the UN, we allow a quick way to create web apps from this data. So I'll do a quick demo after this run through. So they actually distributed this during the climate change conference in December in Peru. So we have also tight Car2DB integration. I'll demo that as well. So we really work out something with the Car2DB guys. They're based in New York. We're trying to open source it right now. We have to use an undocumented API endpoint to do it, so we can't really open source it right now. This will open source this week. So as you can see, you can have conversations within the data. So this is within CKAN dataset page, and you can have true conversations, not just complaints. I'll demo that as well. And finally, I think this is why we're doing all this, is we're creating an indicators platform for creating small data. So, small data is data that you can act on. At the end of the day, people are not really interested in CSVs in the cloud. That's for us researchers and analysts and data scientists to do something with. But for the decision makers, for the regular citizen, for my grandma, they want something, at a glance data, right? So we're computing some of those indicators to something that at a glance I can see, oh, the population decrease, safety, along all these different categories, and we did this for all 3,000 counties and 35,000 towns and municipalities in the U.S. And you might say, oh, so where did we get all that data? As Philip mentioned before, not only was the census responsible for the whole phenomenon of machine-readable data and computing, they're also the first constitutionally mandated open data before open data was in vogue, right? So this is all census data. And what we are trying to do is we want to be able to compare jurisdictions on these indicators, right? So you can start comparing apples to apples. And who are we to do this? Actually, we didn't actually just do it on our own. We're more data wranglers, so we deferred to and used the ISO's 37120 standard. This was just published last summer as a way to compare jurisdictions, a standard way, and they do it by using per capita, and that's why we got all the census data. Also, of course, I have my mandatory dashboard page, but we did some other things beyond just having the ability to create dashboards. Here's some dashboards we're building for Newark. But what I'll show you is the way we do these dashboards is unlike some other dashboarding systems out there from proprietary systems that you can only consume data from within their system, we can consume data from any API endpoint and also from CKAN. And also, since we wrangled all the data for all the US, at least the US because of the census, you can pull in data from the census for your dashboard, so you don't have to get that data from the census, go to Fact Finder and upload it. We maintain, we keep track of the ACS, we keep track of the censuses that's updated. So you can pull that into your dashboard without having to harvest it. We can just pull that in. So you can see here, you can, we even keep a catalog of all the CKAN instances we know of, so you can just pull data from the data store from those instances. So we did this as a service. So actually, we're launching this next week. We call it Civic Dashboards. So it's raw data in, insights out as a service. It's almost like analytics as a service, because one thing we realize, a lot of small jurisdictions don't really have, like in New York, a mayor's office of data analytics, or like here in Canada and Ashley, right? A lot of these small jurisdictions don't really have a data science team. They don't have. So it's not just spinning up a CKAN instance. We almost do data as a service for them. So we feed them data. We also compute indicators, and we allow them to compute their own indicators. So let me, this is launching next week, and if you want, I can talk to you more about it, but let me go through a quick demo. How many minutes? 1 minute. Right. So this will be a very quick demo. So here's something we're doing for New York City, the CFA Brigade. One more. Passwords. So just to quickly show how we do I think the sexiest integration we did is with Car2DB. So here's some raw data. We geocoded it with the dog fooding geocoder, and now I have the refined version here in the portal, right? So if I want to create a Car2DB integration beyond just having rendering markers on a page, we want to actually start telling stories inside the portal. So if I click on Manage, this is, of course, using the resource view feature in the latest CKAN. So just by clicking a new resource, I'll just do this demo. Behind the scenes, it's talking to Car2DB. You have to have an associated account. If I go to that resource now, as you can see, there it is. But beyond, so right now, you can actually start editing it, right? But even if you don't edit it, we render all points, and we also add some features like a locator button, a context map, a scale bar. We also add what I call the context bar. So what this is, should you embed this into a website, right? One of my complaints about all these visualization and maps is you never have a link to the source data, but with this you always have a link to the source data, right? And also here, if I click on talk, because we have discourse integration as well in the CKAN instance, I can see the conversation around that data set, which is me talking to myself right now. So, and also, just let me just quickly, one more minute. One thing I want to show is I think I remember this password. There you go. So here, if I click edit, right? So I go into CAR2DB's editor. I can do all the things that you can do with CAR2DB. Add another layer for neighborhood. I can add a title here. And then say change the wizard to say have a chloroplet map of say the vaccination. And if I go to my CKAN instance, all those edits are retained, without you having to create a program or anything. And you have all these, the locator, you have the context bar, you have the context map, you have the scale bar, and all that good stuff that So we believe 95% of the time this is also already useful. Okay. There's a lot more. If you have any questions, let me know. Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think that this is a great reminder to join our working groups this afternoon, whether you're going to join the technical working group or the government working group. We do want to merge at the end of the day to talk about how they do have an impact on each other, and I think Joel's presentation was a good example of that. So we'll just have Dan come up. And I'll let you choose which one. I'll just get you.
The presentation, the PowerPoint, actually. I can share also the screens after that.
No.
No. HDX to CKAN or something.
Oh, I had it down here.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just go back to the sharing.
You cannot share the whole screen, and
you're gonna have to switch between them. So sorry, everyone. Just 1 second. I don't know. I'm gonna get out of here. I don't know why this is the only one that does not let me get out. Okay, anyway, we'll just do it this way. So then just
share entire screen.
It doesn't work very well.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's go to that one and then just switch in there. Okay. And your timer, I'll just be here.
Okay, my name is Mihaila. I'm working for OCHA, which stands for United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. And we implemented a platform called Humanitarian Data Exchange, which basically
tries to share the data, the humanitarian data. The main objective of this platform is to make the data easy to be found and to be used for analysis, of course. And I think what is very important is that the people on the field can easily find, share, and download that data, that they can use it for a humanitarian crisis, for example. What we did actually was to change a bit the homepage and to try to put some of the key features on the first homepage, like search, like the shared data, and also you can see here on the bottom of the page the let's say hottest news or page that we just developed. This is the search that we also improved a bit. It's a mixed that will search between indicators and datasets. Indicators are still datasets from CKAN, but we just mark them as with a special flag because they contain data that is validated by the HDX team. So as you can see, we also display a preview of the data. This data is fetched via an API from an external server that we have. I want to show you actually this one. So first I wanted to show you the browse page, which actually contains most of the key features that we have on our application. So what you can see is the locations, which basically stands for the groups in CKAN, and you can browse them via this map, or you can see them in an alphabetically order. Also, if you scroll down, you'll see here something that you can browse to other sections, and you also see the topics sections, which are currently like special tags that are under vocabulary, and a listing of organization. So this is just a quick, let's say, link to some of the key features that we have on the application. Also, if you go to the data, you can see that we have like 1,600, almost 700 data sets. And I wanted to show you something that we have for a common data set, the preview. We integrated Geo Preview. We are still at 2.2 version, so our next step will be to integrate with the new Geo Preview stuff. And basically, this is the GeoJSON that is retrieved from the resources that are uploaded here. Basically, we are using not only GeoJSON, we can use also other files like zip shape files or anything that contains geographical information. And if you have more than one resource, you can add layers here using this button. If it is indicator, you can preview it and see this D3 easy preview. You can also play with the data, filter the data. Again, this data is not it is external link stored in the CKAN, but the data is fetched via an API from our Java external server. Yes.
Great. Just that.
I will be back to.
Oh, you're going to go back again. Okay.
Sorry.
No worries.
Okay. What I also wanted to highlight here is that when the user will scroll down and find other information about the dataset, he will also find this, we call it continuous browsing, which is basically some other information that are retrieved from the dataset and from the resources. Okay. How we did it? We also implemented the Docker. So everything that we have right now is migrated to the Docker, to containers. What I think is very interesting is that even the developers are using the same structure, which allows us to let's say eliminate some of the issues that will appear only on the production server. Even this one is green. It's still something that we need to improve, the data pusher, because we are trying to use it when we are pushing data to the data store, and I will show you why we are doing this. Okay, one of our, let's say, targets was to improve a bit the search, and how we did it was to try to display a mix of indicators datasets. Our next target is to also bring here to the result page results that include organizations and locations. We moved the filters on top, which is a section that can be collapsed or expandable. And you can filter using search as you type, an autocomplete feature. We used a lot of API calls to fetch or to push data. The initial setup, let's say, we had a lot of data in our another Java system, and we had to push via API a lot of data to have the initial setup. We also using data store to get data for our charts and the maps. And we had also to write some API custom calls. For example, we had also a request from our users to be able to provide them via API group light show, we call it. We just don't return the dataset list because the size was very big and they didn't want that. And also we faced this problem that we wanted to update some of the datasets, some fields of a dataset, but we didn't want to overwrite the other one. So we had to write a custom API call just to update part of the dataset. The next target that we had was to build our, let's say, custom pages. This means that we had to do a difference between a regular organization page or location page or even a crisis page. And how we did that? We use data store to get data and to fetch data via API and queries. We also use the file store for the GeoJSON files. We improved the admin interface for these entities. We included also D3 visualizations. We have, for the moment, upgraded Bootstrap to 3.2. But we also had some old pages from the core CKAN that are not yet upgraded. So we are planning to do this. And we also had important request for these custom pages to allow them to make custom theming. And how we did that? In the admin interface, we have extended the regular form and added some fields. For example, we wanted to add 2 logos for an organization. We wanted to put here a base color, and you'll see where we use this base color. And also we had to include some specific sections. For example, we call top line numbers. There are some numbers like a dashboard that displayed an overview of for that organization. We also had to include a map with values on the map. So here in the form we just specify what are the resources that are used for capturing the values that will be placed on the map, and what is the resource that contains the geographical information. And I will just show you how it looks, for example, this page, and you'll see that the green color is basically appearing for all the links and the background. You can also see another custom organization page, WFP, which has another color. And basically, there are a couple of sections that are displayed using the admin form. And in case one section doesn't have data, it's just on display. So you can also customize these pages. And then at the bottom of the page, each organization and location have the listing of the data sets. This is a country page, which has a different structure. You can see the map with different values. You can also see that we try to build a chart with two sources. So basically, there are two resources fetched from the data store that are providing data to be built on that chart. Also, this dashboard numbers, top line numbers that display information about country. And I think this is our last created page, which is Nepal earthquake. Is built basically with the location form, but it's a bit different. It has a map with several layers there. It has also the top line numbers, and yet we don't have any data to display as a chart. And this was the Ebola crisis page, which contains also more top line numbers. And I think there was also a D3 chart I can show you live if you want. What we are trying to do next, I think there are more than these 5 steps, but I will try to show you what we wanted to do. First is we wanted to upgrade to 2.3, which is, I think, an important step. We want to implement our user-to-user messages and email validation module. Also, we want to align the views that we found very useful in 2.3. We also wanted to align our embed functionalities that we have in the visualization with the embed embed functionality from the views from 2.3, which I also found very, very useful. And we also have a question in case we still want to build our own custom pages, which basically don't, I mean, they are not an entity that is right now a CKAN. What should and how should we do it? How should we store information about this one? Should we use only views? Should we use, I don't know, should we build our entity to store the customization? If you have questions.
I'm just wondering the HDX framework that is open source.
Yeah. You can see it in CKAN.
Thank you
very
so
much.
And your time. Great, that'll help us get back on track. We do have 2 more presentations. I hope that you guys can stay around for them. They're going to be very interesting, both Canadian examples, so we're excited for that. I will just, I don't know. There you go.
So I do get full screen on that. Is it breaking?
Yeah.
Or should I not?
No.
Okay.
Doesn't seem to be an issue for the PDFs.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you, Ashley. Yes, so hi, I'm Ian. I'm a programmer. This is going to be a programming talk. I in particular like to work on Python and open source projects. I work on CKAN Core. I've been a contributor for the past 2 years. I work on the Canadian Federal Open Data Portal. I work on a few CKAN extensions, including an extension that provides true multilingual metadata within CKAN, an extension that allows multiple organizations to have their own tables that they can update data, which is then combined and published as a single data set, as well as tools around CKAN, including CKAN multi-site for launching multiple websites, CKAN instances through a web interface, which is built on another tool, a CKAN tool based around Docker, which helps launch and develop CKAN instances. And I'm also working on a platform for serving those instances, which includes a free tier for people developing small sites, so that may be of interest to some of our technical people here. But this talk is on CKAN API and CKANX scheming. So you might have noticed a lot of what I'm doing is related to CKAN, and I wouldn't be doing that if I wasn't having fun. And I think David Reed alluded to one of the reasons that I really enjoy working on CKAN, and has been that I've come to this code base, and it's obvious that the people who've been working on it for a long time put a lot of thought into how to design a large application, how to allow it to be extended and used in ways that it wasn't originally intended. So this means that people with all sorts of different types of experience can contribute and extend CKAN in their own ways. CKAN API is a library that makes it easy to extend CKAN from the API level, from the action level. And it's actually two things. It's both a Python library for calling CKAN actions, and it's a command line client for calling CKAN actions. From Python, it looks something like this. You would import it, you would connect to your CKAN instance, and then you have Python method calls, which just looks like normal method calls for calling CKAN actions. It's been designed to be safe, so regardless of if you're calling these CKAN actions from a local context, so if you're developing a plugin or if you're connecting to a CKAN instance that's remote, you always get exceptions when something goes wrong. You don't have to write code in a way where you're checking the return value to make sure that everything's okay. It just looks like normal Python code, integrates very, very nicely. And if you're used to writing plugins and using the call action method, it also makes sure to clean out your data dictum context, which can be troublesome if you've ever run into that. The code is universal. It works on Python 2 and 3 in a source-compatible way, so there's no translation required. You can just pick it up and use it. This is becoming more and more important. New users to Python are coming on Python 3. It's great that they can use a library that just works. And it's been designed in a generic way, which is something that I don't see with a lot of the other wrappers for the CKAN API. There's nothing in CKAN API that's specific to the particular actions that are being called. If you're accessing a CKAN instance where somebody has extended it and added their own functionality, you can call that through CKAN API. It does this by providing a consistent interface. So local CKAN is the class to use if you're writing a plugin or if you're writing it from core. Remote CKAN is the same exact thing, but you're talking to a remote CKAN instance over the web. And then test app would be for your nose tests. So that's the Python library side of CKAN API. Just import it. The best docs right now are on the GitHub repository and of course the CKAN Action API reference, which is what it's all about exposing. So the command line client for CKAN API goes a little bit further. It allows single as well as bulk actions from the command line. And it's designed to be a good sort of Unix command line tool. It's designed to be easy to pipeline, and it works equivalently, again, locally and remote. Single actions with string parameters look something like this. You can just type CKAN API, give it the method name, pass your values in as strings. If you need something more complicated than that, you can also pass in JSON. There's no limitation. But bulk actions are also available. So CKAN API provides dump, datasets, organizations, and groups. These will give you access to a complete catalog of your metadata, streamed on standard out for your datasets or organizations and groups. And equivalently, or on the other side, it allows you to load that same stream into another CKAN instance with the load command. All of these bulk actions also support parallel operation. Sometimes CKAN is slow. It happens. But this, if you specify -p with a number of processes, this will actually split up the work as it's coming in into multiple processes to make the job a lot quicker. This is important when you've got tens or hundreds of thousands of data sets or organizations. As I was saying, it's a good command line utility in the Unix sense. You can pipe from one to the other, so I can pipe through to SSH to move my data from one machine to another. I can use two CKAN API commands to pull data from one CKAN instance into one that I want to work on, and then I've got a copy of everything, and I can test and I can play with it there. And the way that this works is with a bulk data format called JSON lines, which is what it sounds like. Each line has a complete JSON object on it. This also works very well with Unix tools. And it's always provided in a consistent order with sorted keys. So anytime that you export, if you haven't changed anything, it will always be exported exactly the same. This lets you do things like check in your data sets or your organizations into a source repository, and you can see with your source tools exactly what's changed. Or you can use Unix tools like split. I could take all my data sets, break it into 3 parts, just because they're just lines. It's a text file, and send them to separate web servers to gently load these data sets. Tools like JQ are great for working with JSON lines as well. You can take this big bulk dump that you've got and perform summaries and things like that on it. So if I just want the titles from this list of data sets, I can do that. You can use JQ to filter as well. So here I'm selecting all of my data sets that belong to any organization except NRCan. And then I'm piping that to word count -L to find out, well, how many of these do I actually have? But I could just as easily send that to another file or load that into another location. So that's my quick tour of the CKAN API tool. I encourage you to use it. I love it. It's great. The help is available from the command line, and send me bugs if you run into anything. So CKAN API, back to CKAN's layers, was designed to expose the CKAN's action layer and make that easier to use. The next part of my talk is on CKANX scheming, which goes one step down and takes advantage of one of the plugins in CKAN called iDataSetForm. And I'm a big fan of iDataSetForm. iDataSetForm is great. It lets you define your own brand new sets of dataset types. It lets you customize the templates for those particular types. They can be totally different when you're editing them and when you're showing them to the user. And it also lets you define your own fields and validation rules that will be applied to those fields, whether it's entered through the API or through the form. The only trouble is iDataSetForm is kind of hard. You need to know Python. You need to deal with some fairly nested and macro Jinja 2 templates in order to actually take advantage of it. And you also have to learn a schema language that only exists in the world of CKAN. Scheming tries to make that a little bit easier. It's actually possible to use the scheming extension with 0 additional code and create custom schemas. The templates are included in scheming, so there's templates for all the different types of fields you might want to add, or many of the different types of fields you might want to add. And this is all implemented with a single JSON schema where you define all of the parts of all the bits of information about your fields all in one place. So you define how you'd like it to look when it's edited, how you'd like it to look when it's displayed, what validation rules are applied, what labels will be applied, and anything else that you might want to have in there. And with CKAN 2.3, there's a new plugin type called iValidators that lets you define your own validation rules. Scheming can use those as part of the validation, so you still have complete control over your custom validation. The reason that I chose JSON as the data format for the schema file is because I wanted to make sure that this stuff got shared. Yes, it's possible to share Python code, but now I'm sort of forcing everybody. If you're using scheming, you're also telling people what's your schema. What is the schema for these, or is your metadata schema for these data sets? It's now available through the Action API, so somebody can query it and see exactly what are your rules, what are the rules that you've got for displaying this information and for entering it. So here's an example, a very quick example of my important collection of camel photos. This is what the schema looks like. I'm defining a new dataset type, so this dataset type would appear under a new URL which matches that type. So it'll be /camelphotos instead of dataset. And you'll see 2 of the default CKAN fields here. This is title and name. The name is actually what's used as the URL slug portion of the dataset. And you'll see I'm defining all of those different things all in one place. But you might also notice that a lot of this is repetitive, and it's default stuff that you probably shouldn't need to enter. So scheming allows you to use presets, and it comes with presets for all of the default fields and for a bunch of the common types of fields that you might want. So here I'm only overriding the placeholder title and the label in these core fields using the presets. There's a number of presets available, including select boxes. It's a select preset. You can list all of the choices directly in the schema. This applies to the validation. It selects what will be displayed to the end users. There's multiple checkbox. There's multiple select. There's things like date field. There's a whole bunch of them. I can't sort of list them all, but this is an example of what it would look like in the schema. When you're looking at the actual dataset form, just by using that schema that I showed you there, this is what your dataset form now looks like for this type of dataset. Each of the fields, the select field has been added populated with the values. The checkboxes are already going to be checked for any ones that you've selected. It'll read that in properly. The date is an HTML5 date field, which is then also validated on the server side. So if somebody's just passing in something on the API, they can't send garbage. And that's my quick tour of scheming. The future, I'd like to finish some of the work on groups and organizations, and actually users. Users has been mentioned as well. These are places where many people that have CKAN catalogs would like to customize what types of fields are there. I'd like to add search facets to this as well, so that from that same place where you're defining these are my choices, I'd like to just say, yes, I'd like users to be able to select these to search from. And it's also been suggested that we have a registry of these schemas to make it easier to share. So scheming already provides some sharing. So if you're on a site, you can get the schema. But having a registry where we could say this is the preferred DCAT implementation within scheming, and this is the preferred ISO implementation, that would be a really nice way to work together on some metadata schemas. So that's it. I'll defer my 2 minutes just so we can get to lunch earlier. But come and find me afterwards, please.
Great. So we're down to the last presentation. Thanks for staying with us. But this will be a great one about geospatial data in BC. So, Greg, I will let you get started.
So not only do I find myself with 2 minutes between me and, between me and lunch in 2 minutes, and I see everybody in the room knows more about CKAN than I do, but I'm excited to tell you about what we've done with CKAN and what we're planning to do with CKAN. So I live on an island in the Pacific Ocean, just off the coast of Canada, Vancouver Island, and I work for the province of British Columbia. And we've, in the last 4 months, implemented CKAN as a system. data.BC is the organization I work for, and similar to data.gov, we're in the business of aggregating data sets from a number of agencies and gathering with that lots of metadata. We've been doing that for some time, actually. But we do a number of other services for government, but basically we are a centralizing agency providing services of data gathering, data sharing, and mapping infrastructure services from that. As I mentioned, we've been in the metadata or data cataloging business for a long time. We started out with one of the first ISO 19115 compliant metadata repositories that was available, and from that we learned a lot. One of the things that we learned is that actually there's very few people who are qualified to put metadata into a 19115 schema or will understand it, and you'll find that there's even fewer people who will do that. We also were one of the first, I guess we're the first province that launched an open data portal, and we created our own custom system to do that based on a bunch of legacy systems when CKAN was in its infancy, and we built this thing custom, and in the last year and a half I've been working to replace these legacy systems with our new system, which is based on CKAN. And 4 months ago we launched that, or 5 months now. It's based on CKAN 2.21. We use 4 different schemas, which we are working with Ian, and we're looking forward to actually trying to socialize the schemas that we use for the way that we use data. We have geospatial packages or data set types, which we ensured had the mandatory elements that were required to provide for the 1915 North American profile. And our site, you can check it out here. We also have done a lot of work with interoperability with existing systems. We have a large geospatial user crowd that uses ArcMap, and so we now have the ability for them to search based on the objects that they're using in ArcMap, a link to the catalog information. We have web mapping platforms where we interchange the configuration information that we have in our web mapping platforms with CKAN, so that we can provide linkages out to those mapping platforms. We disseminate data through a custom data extraction tool, which is actually powered by FME in the back end. And we gather data from many different agencies using FME. We have hundreds of replications that occur, and all of these go into a data warehouse, an Oracle data warehouse. We call it the BC Geographic Warehouse, and we interchange data dictionary information right now with that BC Geographic Warehouse. We also provide simple linkages for things like Google Maps. So Google Maps, and our WMS services, we're embedding metadata, so there's the potential for people to access data. So we see CKAN is the ticket, and CKAN, I notice that's what it looks like now, but CKAN is definitely at the center of what we do in DataBC. So a couple things quickly about spatial data within CKAN. We do have geospatial data within CKAN for all of our geospatial data sets. Bounding box information tends not to be very interesting to us within the province, but it's certainly something that will be leveraged as we talk about federating our content out with other agencies such as the Government Canada. We're quite excited about doing that kind of federation. We have implemented the data store, and we like the preview technology that's in that and the search API that it presents. And we're experimenting with using that for our smaller data sets. So rather than running those through our regular ETL processes and getting them into the geographic warehouse, we will typically look for these smaller data sets and put them onto a data store first and then try them out. This is an example of our catalog using. Make it larger.
Nope.
Okay. Where am I?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, good. Awesome, thanks. So this is an example of one of our data sets, a sample data set that we have. We're using the Recline JS previews, and because we have the latitude and longitude, we have the ability to demonstrate a map of that. We are thinking along the same lines as everyone else, it seems, in the room. We have a geocoder that is specific to British Columbia that we've built, and we are looking at now how we'll integrate that so that we can do things like when we find a data set. The thing we have in British Columbia besides libraries is, oops, we have wine locations, and of course, not being able to put them on a map for me is frustrating because I'm interested in GIS. So but we're going to work to use our own geocoder to batch these entries and provide that kind of feedback right live within CKAN. I'm going to quickly wrap up. So some of the future things that we're going to do, I mentioned that we're already interchanging data from our Oracle database. One of the things that if you look at, here's an example of one of our data sets that is actually a spatial data set rather than a tabular data set. Interesting to lots of people. Another thing we have besides wine or forest fires in British Columbia. And so this is one of our packages. You can see that we've integrated actually what is Google Maps. We have our own system to create previews with Google Maps. This is actually, you can't see them luckily because most of them are quite small. These little black specks are actually forest fire perimeters. If you move up to the Prince George area, you'll see that we have a larger fire there that's current. We also have linkages to our own web mapping platform, which is powered by ArcGIS which is powered by ArcGIS server, and we gather the cartographic information based on the objects that we're putting into our records, so that we have that kind of integration with our web mapping platforms. But we want to do more in terms of interchanging with our geospatial database, so that we get metadata into the schema of ArcGIS geodatabase, so that it's available through the other tools that we use more commonly. It'll be in the REST services that we put out. It'll also be extracted when we're using FME to generate file geodatabases for databases to be taken away. So that's what I mentioned, exporting data sets with bundled metadata. We've got improvement to do in terms of the extraction of geospatial data sets. We're going to look at a simpler widget for limiting the area that we want to select from and the formats that we can output from our existing system. We built an API to our old distribution service to do that. Catalog services web standardization with the Government of Canada in terms of what we're interchanging in schemas and implementations, so that catalog services for web can be used within ArcMap and QGIS. We'll do some simplification of the map preview configuration. I'm super excited about what Adrià is showing in terms of the geo preview. I think we'll probably be adopting that. We will likely build an actual native plugin for ArcMap to leverage the CKAN API rather than the approach that we're using now. And as I mentioned, we're going to do the integration of our geocoder API. So that's lunchtime, unless there's any questions. Well, great.
Any questions?
Catch me later.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we're just going to say goodbye to everyone on the webcast, and then I will give you lunch instructions. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we will be providing information on the Eventbrite page for the working group discussions later this afternoon. There's information for the government working group. There'll be more information to come on the technical working group. Thanks for joining us.